I know why you clicked on this video, and I do not say that to be clever. I say it because I have sat across from enough people in enough small rooms, in enough moments of genuine financial fear, that I recognize the posture of a person who is carrying debt the way you carry something you are ashamed of. Not in your hands where people can see it, but somewhere deeper, somewhere in the chest, somewhere that makes it hard to breathe fully when you sit still long enough to feel it. You clicked because the word debt is your word right now. Because the word blessed feels like a country you used to live in and cannot find your way back to. Because 3 days feels like something you can do even when you are exhausted and depleted and have tried everything else that promised a faster result and delivered nothing. I see you. I am not going to patronize you with a speech about how everything is going to be fine. I am going to give you something real. Something that has been used by real people in real financial darkness for 3,000 years, in conditions far more severe than what you are facing, and has produced documented and observable movement in their lives, not always immediately, not always dramatically, but consistently and unmistakably when applied with the precision I am about to give you. I am Rabbi Naomi. I have spent 38 years inside the sacred texts, and the psalm I am going to share with you today is not one I chose lightly or for the sake of a title. It is the one I have returned to most often in 38 years of working with people in genuine financial crisis. My grandfather, who taught me the foundations of everything I know, used to say that there are psalms for the soul and psalms for the circumstances, and then there is this one, which speaks directly to both at the same time. He used to say that King David wrote from every human condition there is, but that he wrote this particular psalm from inside the specific darkness of a person who has lost the ground beneath their feet and is trying to remember that the ground is still there. That is the psalm for debt. That is the psalm for today. But before I give it to you, you need to stay with me through everything I am about to share, because the psalm alone, read casually, read as words on a page, without understanding what you are doing and why, will not produce what it is capable of producing. The specific posture, the specific timing, the specific internal state you bring to these 3 days, these are the elements that determine the outcome. What I have given you in the title is the truth. 3 days of reading this psalm, with the precision I am going to describe, can shift something. I have watched it happen. I will tell you exactly how to make it happen for you, and I need you to stay until the very end, because the instruction I give in the final minutes of this video is the one that determines whether the first 2 days produce results, or simply produce 3 nice mornings of quiet reading that change nothing. Before we go further, type the words, "Bring me back," in the comments right now. That phrase is not accidental. It is the cry at the center of the psalm we are going to work with today. When you type it in a public space, you are making a declaration of intent, telling the spiritual dimension and telling yourself that you are not here to passively receive information. You are here to return to the place you were before the debt arrived, to the version of your financial life that felt like it had air in it. Type it now, then come back and stay with me. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a woman, let us say she is 41 years old, sitting at a kitchen table on a Wednesday night in November, the kind of November where it gets dark at 4:30 and the cold comes through the windows no matter how high you turn the heat. She has a laptop open in front of her and a yellow legal pad beside it. And on the yellow legal pad, she has written a list of every debt she owes. Not because she needed to see the number, she already knows the number. She wrote it down because she read somewhere that clarity is the first step. And she is the kind of person who tries everything once. The number on the paper is the same number it was in her head. It does not look smaller written down. If anything, it looks larger. Because now it is real in a new way. It has edges. and she is sitting there looking at it and feeling something I think you might recognize. Not despair exactly, more like a very specific exhaustion. The exhaustion of having tried, of having budgeted and cut and picked up extra work and made choices she did not want to make. And still, the number on the legal pad is the same number it was 18 months ago. She is not failing to try. She is failing to move. And those are not the same problem, and they do not have the same solution. Now I want to sit in that image for a moment, because that woman at the kitchen table in November is not a hypothetical in the sense that she is invented. She is a composite of dozens of real people I have worked with, and she represents something very specific about the nature of financial debt that the ancient teachers understood and that the modern world has almost entirely missed. The problem she is facing on that Wednesday night is not primarily a mathematical problem. The number on the legal pad is the symptom. The root is something older and quieter and harder to see directly. The root is what the tradition calls a closed channel, a spiritual condition in which the flow of abundance that the teachers taught is available to every human being by design has become blocked, not by external circumstances alone, but by a specific internal shift that occurred when the debt arrived, and that the debt itself, left unaddressed at the spiritual level, perpetuates. Most people treat debt as a practical problem that requires a practical solution. Budget more tightly, earn more, pay it down methodically. These are not wrong responses, but they are responses that operate only on the symptom. They are trying to change the number on the legal pad without touching the closed channel that produced it. And a closed channel, left closed, will produce the same number again. The ancient teachers who assembled the Book of Psalms understood this with a precision that contemporary financial counselling has never matched. They understood that the human being in debt is not simply a human being with a mathematical deficit. They are a human being in a specific spiritual condition, a condition of tzimtzum, of contraction, where the natural movement of life energy has pulled inward in response to fear, and where that contraction, if sustained long enough, begins to replicate itself in every dimension of the person's external circumstances. The closed channel produces closed thinking. The closed thinking produces closed decisions. The closed decisions produce outcomes that confirm the original fear and tighten the contraction further. And the person at the kitchen table on the Wednesday night in November wonders why, with all their effort, the number on the legal pad does not change. It does not change because effort applied against a closed channel is not the same as effort applied through an open one. Before the practical solutions can work at their full capacity, the channel must be reopened. And the instrument the tradition gave us for reopening the channel, specifically in conditions of financial contraction, specifically in conditions of debt and stagnation, and the exhaustion of having tried, is the psalm. The psalm I am going to give you is the 23rd. I know you may have heard it before. I need you to set aside everything you think you know about it, because I'm going to show you what it actually says in the original Hebrew, what it was actually written to accomplish, and why the way most people read it, even people of deep faith, does not access what the psalm is actually capable of producing. The 23rd Psalm was written by David at a specific moment in his life, a moment documented in the surrounding texts where he had lost nearly everything he had accumulated. His finances were in ruin, his household was in crisis, his future, by every external measure available to a reasonable person looking at the circumstances, was closed. And he sat down, and he wrote what the tradition considers the most complete single piece of wisdom literature ever produced, about the specific spiritual posture required to reopen a closed channel. He did not write it from a place of settled peace. He wrote it from inside the darkness. And the darkness is in the psalm, if you know how to read it. The valley of the shadow of death, Salmavet in the Hebrew, is not a metaphor for minor difficulty. The word is constructed from the roots for shadow and death together. It is the condition of financial life where the light has gone out, where the path is not visible, where every practical calculation leads to the same dark conclusion. David wrote from inside that, and he wrote through it to the other side. And the movement in the text, from that darkness to the table set in the presence of enemies, to the cup that runs over, to the goodness and mercy that follow all the days. That movement is not decorative poetry. It is a map. A precise spiritual map for the reopening of the closed channel. Here is exactly how you use it over 3 days. Each day has a specific instruction, and the instructions build on each other. Do not skip a day. Do not rearrange the sequence. If you miss a day, you begin again from day 1. The tradition is exact about this, not because of arbitrary rules, but because the 3-day structure mirrors the minimum unit of spiritual formation that the teachers recognized across every major practice in the tradition. 1 day is an intention, 2 days is a pattern, 3 days is a beginning. On the first day, you read the psalm only once, and you read it in the morning, within the first 30 minutes of waking, before you have looked at your finances, before you have checked any account, before you have had any conversation about money. Sit in a quiet place, a chair, the edge of your bed, wherever you can be still for 10 minutes without interruption. Read the psalm aloud. Not silently, aloud. In a voice that is slightly quieter than your normal speaking voice. What the teachers called a lakash, a whispered intensity. The voice of someone speaking to someone very close rather than to a room. As you read, I want you to read it slowly enough that each phrase is complete before the next one begins. Do not rush through it as if you are meeting a word count. Read it as if each line is a door you are opening, and as you read, hold in your mind, not forcing it, just allowing it, the specific face of your financial situation. Not the whole list, one specific face. The one that wakes you up at 3 in the morning. The one that has the most weight. Hold it there while the words move over it. That is the entirety of day 1. 1 reading, aloud, in the morning, with your specific burden present in your awareness. The first day is for acknowledgement. The psalm acknowledges that the valley is real. You are not pretending it is not there. You are bringing it into the presence of the text and allowing the text to hold it alongside you. On the second day, you read the psalm 3 times. Once in the morning, in the same manner as the first day. Once at midday, not necessarily exactly at noon, but in the middle of your day, whatever that middle is for you, as a deliberate interruption of the ordinary. Set an alarm if you need to. The midday reading is important because the teachers understood that the middle of the day is when the practical anxiety peaks, when the emails come, when the numbers feel most urgent, when the mind is most likely to spiral into the worst-case calculations that tighten the channel further. The midday reading is not a break from the day. It is an act of sovereignty over the day. You are stopping in the middle of the practical chaos to reassert the spiritual reality that the psalm carries, that even in the valley, the shepherd is present, that even at the table surrounded by what threatens, the cup is being filled. And once more at night, before sleep, read it again. The nighttime reading has a specific instruction attached to it that is different from the other 2. Before you begin the nighttime reading, speak aloud, in your own words, not the words of the psalm, your own words. 1 sentence naming what you are releasing. Not what you are asking for, what you are releasing. The fear that the debt defines you, the belief that the closed channel is permanent, the story that you have done something unforgivable with money and that this is why the blessing has stopped. Name one of those and release it aloud before you read. Then read the psalm in the Lakash voice. The second day is for surrender, not resignation, surrender. The acknowledgement that you cannot reopen this channel by force, by calculation, by effort alone, and that you are willing to allow the reopening to occur through a means you cannot entirely engineer. The third day has one reading only, and it is the most powerful of all the days. And it is the one I told you earlier that most people miss when they attempt this without a teacher. The third day reading happens in the evening, after sunset, before you sleep. You have spent 2 days bringing your burden into the psalm and the psalm into your burden. On the third day, you do something different. You read the psalm from the other side of it. You read it as if the cup is already running over. Not as performance, not as positive thinking, not as pretending, as prophecy. The tradition teaches that the Psalms of David operate in what the mystics called the eternal present, that the conditions he describes are not historical conditions he once experienced and then transcended. They are ongoing spiritual realities that exist in a dimension where time is not linear. And when you read in the voice of someone who is receiving rather than waiting, you are accessing that dimension rather than the dimension of the problem. Read the third day slowly. Read the final verse. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Read that verse twice. Let it complete. Then sit in silence for 2 minutes after the psalm is finished. Not in thought, not in review, just present. In the tradition, this silence after sacred text is called the Shatika Shel Chochmah, the silence of wisdom. The moment when what has been received is being absorbed into the layer of the self, where it will actually produce change. Do not skip this silence. This silence is part of the practice. 2 minutes, then go to sleep. In the days after the 3 days are completed, let me tell you what to watch for. And this is the inoculation I promised you. The knowledge of what is coming, so that you are not caught off guard by it. In most people I have worked through this practice with, the first sign of movement comes not as a financial event, but as a mental one. A clarity that was not there before. A sudden sense of direction about something that had felt stuck. Sometimes a conversation that opens an unexpected door. Sometimes a phone call you had been putting off that you now feel ready to make. The tradition calls these petach, openings, small openings, not the full resolution, the first breath of the reopened channel. When you notice one, acknowledge it. Say aloud, even quietly, even to yourself, I see this. Thank you. Because the act of acknowledging the first fruit is what signals to the spiritual dimension that you are a vessel that notices and honors what is given, and that signal invites more. The people who dismiss the small opening because they were waiting for the large one almost always close the channel again with their own dismissal. Do not make that mistake. See the small opening. Name it. Honor it. Now. I also need to tell you about the test, because it is coming, and I will not send you through these 3 days without warning you. On the second day, almost always the second day, occasionally the third, something will arrive that tightens. An unexpected bill. A number that looks worse than you expected. A conversation that feels like confirmation of the worst story you have been telling yourself about your financial life. This is not evidence that the practice is failing. This is the test of the vessel. The tradition describes this pattern in the life of every person who has practiced genuine spiritual work aimed at a specific life change. The test arrives at the point of maximum spiritual activation, when the channel between intention and manifestation is most open. Do not stop. Do not interpret the test as failure. Meet it with the same lachash voice you have been using for the psalm. Speak to it quietly. I see you. You are not the final word. Then read the psalm again if you need to. The test breaks on the third day, not always dramatically. Sometimes it simply becomes quiet. The people who stop at the test on day 2 never reach the third day, where the channel finishes opening. Stay with it, all the way through. If today's teaching is the beginning of something for you, if you felt something shift in the way you understand what debt actually is and what it actually requires to heal, then I want you to know that I have put together a complete body of this work in the resource available at the link below this video. It contains the full sequence of 5 psalms the tradition designates for different stages of financial healing, the full Musar practice for the specific thought patterns that close the channel, and the sentences you are probably saying to yourself about money every day that are costing you more than any debt you owe. Everything I have given you today is enough to begin. What is in that resource is the full architecture. I want to close by saying this plainly. The debt you are carrying is not a sentence. It is a condition. And conditions can change. Not because of magic, not because of wishful thinking, not because you found the right psalm and read it at the right time, and the universe decided to reward you. Conditions change because when the channel reopens, the human being standing at it makes different decisions, sees different openings, has the energy and clarity and settled inner certainty to do the next right practical thing, and then the next, and then the next. The psalm does not pay your debt for you. It restores you to the version of yourself who is capable of doing what is required to change the condition. It brings you back to your own competence, your own vision, your own access to the provision that has been available to you all along, but that the closed channel was making invisible. That is what 3 days of this practice can do. That is what I have watched it do. And it is available to you starting tomorrow morning if you are willing to begin. Tell me something in the comments. Tell me the one word that describes what you are feeling right now about your financial life. Not a sentence, one word. I read every comment, and I'm going to respond to the ones that tell me the most honest word. Because naming the honest word is the first act of the work we have just begun together. Next week, I'm going to reveal a teaching that the great medieval scholars kept almost entirely within closed study halls. A principle about the specific objects in your home that are silently communicating your financial frequency to everyone who enters. And what to change, and in what order, to reverse what they are saying. If you are not subscribed with the notification bell on, you will not find that teaching when it arrives. Subscribe now. Turn the bell on. I will be here. And if what you receive today is something that someone you love needs to hear, someone who is sitting at their own kitchen table on their own November night, with their own legal pad and their own number that will not change, press the like button. It puts this in front of them. That press is an act of love for someone you may not even know yet. Do it for them. May the 3 days ahead of you be the turning point you have been searching for. May the psalm you carry into your mornings this week reopen what fear has closed. May the channel of provision that was designed for your life flow freely again. Not in barely enough, but in the overflow the tradition promises belongs to every person who prepares their vessel and returns to the source. May the goodness and mercy that David wrote about from inside his darkest valley follow you also, all the days of your life. You came here in search of a way back. May what I have given you today be exactly that. Shalom.